Well, hello there, my good faithful YouTube viewers and listeners. It is the Jer Bear. Today's date is Tuesday, June 28th, 2022. Thanks for stopping by and indulging my thoughts for the next little while. So this is something that I've mentioned a couple of times in my Sunday video updates for those of you who've been watching and actually paying attention to what I've been saying. This daily rant is going to be about the topic of abortion. And I understand that many people would say, well, Jared, you're a man. You really have no opinion on this. You shouldn't really talk about something that doesn't directly impact you. And then there are many more who say that this abortion issue is an everybody issue. And so I'm going to go on that basis alone, that this is an every person issue. Although personally I don't have kids and I don't feel I have a dog in the fight. However, I do have some thoughts on what happened with the recent overturning of Roe versus Wade in the United States Supreme Court. That was pretty recent, about last week, I think. I forget, I don't know. It was just recent. So I'm going to say right off the bat, and if this offends anybody, tough shit, I'm pro-choice. I have always been of the impression or the opinion that a woman should get to decide what she does with her own bodily autonomy. Now, Roe versus Wade, I've heard somewhere on Facebook that Roe v. Wade is not just abortion, that it's much more than just an abortion issue. But I'm going to talk about the abortion aspect of Roe v. Wade because that seems to be a hot button issue. It's a hot topic right now. So, see, Roe v. Wade guaranteed the constitutional rights for women to have an abortion. And before that, before Roe v. Wade, it was illegal to have, abortions. So, and this was before 1973 when Roe v. Wade was passed. So I want to talk about that a little bit. Now, first of all, for you knuckleheads who don't understand the difference, killing a child and terminating a pregnancy are not the same thing. They are not the same thing. Two different things. Most people, and especially dudes, I've noticed a lot of dudes look at this as abortion is killing a child, when in fact it's just terminating a pregnancy. And I think that a woman should have that right to her own bodily autonomy. I've always been of that opinion. There's like I said, there's a lot of back and forth on Facebook right now. It's actually a fucking war zone on Facebook. Everybody's, talking about child killing, and other people are trying to say, hey, this is not killing a child. It's not the same thing, which it's not. It's terminating a pregnancy. It's not the same thing. And my mom and I have these arguments and back and forth discussions all the time. And it's like, and this is something I wanted to bring up too, because, see, when my mom was pregnant with my brother Jay, she carried Jay to term, but they almost died together. My mom and my brother almost died together. So, with that being said, it kind of makes me question why my mom would even think that abortion is child killing. If it came down, listen, if it came down to the right down to the nitty gritty, because all pregnancy is risky. I think everybody knows there are big risks involved when it comes to pregnancy and childbirth. But if my mom would have aborted my brother because it could have potentially killed her, I would have support, and I'm not saying I want my brother dead. That's not what I'm saying. So don't get any ideas. I'm just saying that if my mother at that time in 1980 would have decided to have an abortion because it could have potentially killed her, I would have been supportive of that decision if we had that talk. It's the same with me. If my mom, because, you can't predict childhood cancer, but if I was born with a deformity or a birth defect or something of that nature, and if my mom wanted to abort me, it would have been understood. It would have been totally understood. And it's not even just that. It goes beyond that. The main reason that I get so upset about the overturning of Roe v. Wade is because what if this was an 11-year-old girl who was violated? And I talk about this in my Sunday video updates. Just this week, I talked about what if this was a child that was raped and she's forced to carry the rapist's unborn child to term, and then she's got to live with that. That could potentially kill her because she's 10, 11 years old, and it's just a hypothetical, of course. But it's not to say that it can't happen in real life. And that's part of the reason why I got so upset about the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Because it's not just removing the protection of women in unplanned pregnancies or unwanted pregnancies, but you have to think about these young girls who are now at even greater risk if they get raped and a pregnancy results in the rape. So now that young girl, that little girl, has zero rights to her own body. And there was even mention about, how Roe v. Wade, when they overturned it, the Supreme Court had basically just given individual, they had given the power back to the individual states, which, okay, fine. But that still doesn't guarantee the protection of women and young girls who are getting pregnant and they don't want the kid. They don't want to keep the kid. They don't want to carry the baby to term. So there's that. We're still walking on eggshells, and it's only going to get worse, in my estimation. So these people who are saying, well, if you don't want to get pregnant, keep your legs closed. It's not that cut and dry. There is so much more involved with just, don't lay on your back if you don't want the kid. And I understand, and I agree, don't use abortion as a form of birth control. That's where I might draw the line. And maybe I'm wrong. And, if someone could explain to me or give me a reason or an explanation that would change my mind about that, email me. I'd be more than happy to read what you have to say in an email. Tell me something that would convince me to change my mind about, using abortion as a form of birth control. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think you should be using that as a form of birth control. However, abortion is still health care. Whether anybody wants to acknowledge that or not, abortion is still health care. An abortion alone for a woman is probably one of the single most difficult decisions to make. Especially if, you can change your mind. Like, okay, let's have a kid, but I've thought about this and I've decided that I really don't want to have this kid. I'm not financially stable. I'm not emotionally stable. I've decided that I don't want to have this baby. I don't want to carry this baby to term. It is a very difficult decision to make. The process itself is painful, excruciatingly painful for a woman. Pregnancy changes a woman's body forever. And I know with the women I'm preaching to the choir, if you're a woman who had kids, but I'm also talking to these guys who are so far gone uneducated on this issue. We as men, or even the people in the Supreme Court, we have zero right to tell a woman or to force a woman to remain pregnant. That to me is bullshit. We don't have a right to tell any woman or force any woman to remain pregnant. Because consent to sex is not consent to pregnancy, and consent to pregnancy is not consent to remaining pregnant or carrying a baby to term. That's just the way it is. There's risks involved in everything, especially with, pregnancy and taking the proper precautions. Like if you want to have sex but not have a kid, well, you got to take those extra steps. You got to use contraceptives or do whatever means necessary to prevent from that happening. Pull out, as they say. But even contraceptives, they're not 100% guaranteed. Like if you use a contraceptive and you have sex, and there's no guarantee that you're still not going to get pregnant. There's no guarantee. Like there's a percentage. I don't know the percentage right off, but it's not 100%. I can tell you that much. It's not 100%. So there's that. Everything about this is risky. Even the conversations, as far as I'm concerned. But abortion is not an easy thing for a woman. It's just not. And instead of me coming here to a daily rant or going on Facebook talking about what I think is, should a woman have to carry a baby to term? No, she shouldn't. But the real discussions and the real decisions, and the only decisions that should ever matter, is between the woman and her OBGYN. That's the only real decision or discussion that should ever matter in a situation like this. Not my opinion, not what the Supreme Court of the United States has to say. It should be between the woman, the father of that unborn child, and the OBGYN. I think it should be, or not even the father of the child, maybe just perhaps the woman and her OBGYN. I think that's where the real discussions take place, and that should be the only thing that ever matters when it comes to abortion. So now we're going to have a bunch of unwanted children. The American child foster care system is already overwhelmingly populated with children, like 500,000 kids now. And it's just going to get worse. It's going to pile up. It's going to be well over 1 billion if, we keep up at the rate of populating the planet. But I got to tell you, I'm really sad and angry for the women because they've had this right taken away from them. And it is weird for any guy. I'm sure it might be weird if you're a woman listening to this. It might be weird for you to say, or for me to say this, and you're listening to me talk about this issue because it's really more a woman's issue. But generally, broadly speaking, I think it affects everybody, including me. If I, with any stroke of luck, but just as a hypothetical, if I ever find a woman, if I ever find the one, and one day she decided that she wants to have a kid with me, if I'm able to reproduce, okay? Let's say, for example, we have sex, I get her pregnant, I impregnate her with my unborn child. Then one day later on, she comes to me and says, "Hey, honey, we need to have a talk. I don't know if I want to go through with having this kid." Now, would it upset me? Would it hurt me? Yeah, because I would want more than anything to have a child with somebody. I mean, if this woman loves me enough to want to have my kid, yeah, I would love to have a baby with her. However, at the end of the day and at the end of this conversation, the woman is carrying that unborn child. She is acting as an incubator for a fetus. At the end of the day in the conversation, ultimately, she gets to make that decision. And I know there's a lot of guys out there right now shaking their heads saying, Jared, you're wrong, Jared, you're wrong. No, I am absolutely fucking correct. A woman should always have the decision, the final say in what she does with her body. Perfect example, okay? Perfect example. And I've heard this example used quite a bit. This is a good analogy, and I'm going to use this. Everybody knows I'm a childhood cancer survivor, okay? I've got one kidney. I've had one kidney for the last 33 years, since 1989, since I was 2 years old, 2.5. If I needed an extra kidney to sustain my life, I could not just go and take someone's kidney without their consent, okay? If I needed that kidney to live, I don't get to just help myself to anyone's kidney without their consent and against their will. Even if they need it to live, it's too bad. I need it. It's kind of the same thing. A fetus is dependent on the woman carrying it because the woman is putting into her body sustenance and nutrients to help the fetus grow, okay? So she's doing everything she can to make sure that she's eating and drinking all the right stuff, healthy stuff for the baby, for the unborn child. It's no different. This fetus is using the woman's body to sustain itself. And the woman should have that right to say, I do not want this child. This is an unplanned pregnancy, an unwanted pregnancy. I do not want this child. Or this baby or whatever. And the problem that we have in America is that we're granting special rights to fetuses. And they're not yet actual, babies, human beings. So we're granting special rights to fetuses, which is, I don't know. It's another discussion for another day. That woman should get to say, I do not want this to have, I don't want to go through with this pregnancy. Because it could be, it could be risky to the woman. That woman could potentially die if she gives birth to it. Women, you hear about this all the time. Women die giving birth. Complications at birth. Women die from that. And if a woman decides, again, that she does not want to have a kid, that should be up to her. Even if, now, in the scenario where I mentioned about if I impregnate a woman, I would be hurt, but I would also be supportive because it is her body. It wouldn't be right for me. Okay, if I'm another example, I'll jettison the kidney example or the kidney analogy. I'll go with this one. Let's say, for example, I needed your blood. You, the person listening to this, I needed your blood to sustain my life. And without your consent and against your will, someone installs a tube from your body to mine so I can filter your blood to sustain my life, and it makes not one bit of difference what you say about it. You're going to be forced to give me your blood to sustain my life. That's basically what abortion is. It's a woman saying, I should get to decide as to whether or not I want to carry this child to term. That's what abortion is. It's not killing the child. It's just not. It's terminating a pregnancy. There's a huge difference. A huge difference. And furthermore, and I'll even go on to say this, if that person, or if you listening to this right now, if you denied me access to your body to get your blood to sustain my own life, you didn't commit murder. You did not commit murder. That's not how that works. But on Facebook, all the knuckleheads on social media want to make it sound as though you're committing murder because, well, there's a heartbeat. Big fucking deal. Big deal. No one is celebrating murder. That's not what this is. It's exactly what I just said. I do not get to hold you against your own will and without your consent to filter your blood into my body should I need blood to sustain my own life. And you denying me that is not murder. It's the same with the woman and her body. Terminating a pregnancy is not murder. It is a termination of a pregnancy. People really need to understand how that works. See, I understand the analogies, and I get it. I totally get it. So that's why I'm pro-choice, and I've been here for a little over 20 minutes. But you guys out there who are listening to this, you can agree or disagree with me. It makes not one bit of difference. But, women, once again, who have always been treated as second-tier citizens in this country, they once again get the short end of the fucking stick. And I think it is appalling. I think it's disgusting. There's a lot of people who are outraged by the decision of the Supreme Court. I'm one of them because I'm about basic human rights. And this is just another slap in the face to women in this country. That they do not have access to that health care. Because abortion is health care. So are we going to start with, we're going to go down, and there's this fear that, the Supreme Court's going to overturn same-sex marriage. And I guess I can talk about that too. You know what? What two people do in the privacy of their own home is none of my fucking business, and it's none of yours. I'm a heterosexual male. I love women. I'm into women. If two guys want to get married and live together, if two women want to get married, it just doesn't matter. It does not matter. Two people, grown consenting people who are in love with each other, doesn't matter if they're men, women, trans, whatever. It does not make a difference. If they love each other and they want to spend the rest of their lives together, who else's business is it? Now, June, we're at the end of June. This is Pride Month. I don't care if two women want to sleep together. I don't care if two guys want to sleep together. I don't care if, transsexuals or whatever the case may be. I don't care. If you love each other, that's all that matters. That's the only thing that matters. It doesn't affect me privately or directly in any way whatsoever. I don't understand what it is with people who think that they can mosey their way into other people's private business all the time. And it starts with things like abortion and gay, marriage and gay rights and all this stuff. Just leave people be. Mind your own fucking business. You do you and let other people do what they have to do. That's my feeling on that. And I'm really upset about particularly upset about the abortion thing because, it doesn't even stop there. I talked about impregnating a woman. Okay, so let's say this woman that I impregnate, as a hypothetical again, let's say she carries that baby to term. Turns out I have a daughter. And my daughter gets raped by someone. Should she have to carry that baby to term? I don't think she should. I don't think she should have to do that. And if it's an underage, an underage girl, 11 years old, do you have any idea? The rape was brutal enough, but do you have any idea what that can do to a little girl? I hate to imagine. I don't know what that, but I can almost guarantee that it is just the most grotesque thing ever. And it makes my stomach turn that we have a government saying you have to carry this child to term. Your options for abortion have ceased. And again, yes, Roe v. Wade, it was overturned, but the Supreme Court had returned power to the states individually, but that still gives the individual states the power to say no. You're not going to terminate the pregnancy. You're going to carry through with it, even if the woman was raped, or what if it was an 11-year-old girl? You're going to make her give birth at 11 years old? Like, what in the flying fuck is going on with this country that we would allow that? It's beyond disgusting, and you're gonna see more and more women crossing state lines, which, if they can afford to travel, you're gonna see and hear about women crossing state lines to get this, to get their abortions. Which, by the way, if that's what it takes, if they have to cross state lines to get an abortion, more power to you. You shouldn't have to do that, because healthcare should be available to everybody, everywhere, from one end of this country to the other. I'm just really, I didn't think I'd be so heated about this discussion, or about this topic, I mean. I'm happy to have the discussions. But you have a lot of uninformed, uneducated jackasses on social media. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They are very ill-informed of the circumstances surrounding abortion. It's not easy for a woman. It's not fun for a woman. To even make that decision is not an easy decision to make. The procedure itself is brutal. I've read up on this. It is absolutely awful. And it's painful. Pregnancy changes a woman's body for the rest of her life. There are risks involved. And if a woman is raped, you're telling me she should have to carry that baby to term? A baby that was unplanned, unwanted. You're telling me right now that she should still have to deliver that child? She should still have to give birth? Wow. I mean, it's so bizarre to me that people focus more on women making a conscious, educated, well-informed decision to abort a fetus. They are more outraged about this than they are the circumstances or the hypotheticals of a man who raped that woman to get her pregnant in the first place. That just blows my mind. That just drives me nuts. No one says shit about rape. Or if they do, it's always in a little corner or a little pocket of the internet that no one says this out loud. I have no fear in saying that. If a woman's raped, she should not have to carry her rapist's child to term. She should not have to have the rapist's baby. The rapist should be dead, as far as I'm concerned. Because if that was my child, if I had a daughter who was raped and ended up pregnant as a result of the rape, somebody would be put to death really fucking fast. And I would do the jail time. And I would be supportive of my daughter to have an abortion. Because there's no way in fuck that an 11-year-old should be having a kid. No way. And for women, as far as women are concerned, if it doesn't, at this point, the age, it doesn't matter. If you're raped, you should not have to be forced to carry a baby to term when that baby belonged to someone who raped you. It wasn't consensual. Again, consent to sex is not consent to pregnancy, and consent to pregnancy is not consent to remaining pregnant or giving birth. It's just not. People need to understand this better. Now, when my mom was pregnant for me, as I was growing inside of her body, she acted as an incubator for my growth and my development inside of her. She had every right to abort me if she wanted to. I'm sure many of you who are my haters listening to this, you probably wish for that. So, go fuck yourselves. But she had that option. But the thing is, after my brother Jay was born, my mom and dad tried and tried and tried after that, shortly thereafter, to, have another child. And I could have been born before 1986. And it had taken 6 years for my mom and dad to have me. I'm telling you, you just... You have to think about what you're saying before you say it. Because... And this message goes out to all these uninformed dudes. They think they know what the fuck they're talking about. My dad was just in Saginaw yesterday, and he had this discussion with a guy, just a random guy. And this guy says, well, the women should just keep their legs closed. It's not that simple. It's not like that. And even if that woman made the conscious decision to have sex with somebody, again, she does not have to carry that baby to term. Again, having sex is not consent to pregnancy, and pregnancy is not consent to remaining pregnant or giving birth. Most people, especially guys, do not understand this. And the women who say, well, if they play around, they should have to suffer the consequences, that's just utterly fucking stupid. And coming from a woman at that, as a woman, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. You ought to be embarrassed at your own comments and statements, because if you were raped, you're still going to have that kid. If that kid had something wrong with it and you didn't want to have to carry that burden, you're still going to carry, even if it was a threat to your own life, even if you could potentially die from this pregnancy. You don't think you should have the right to live? You don't think that you should make well-informed, educated decisions based on what you know and the risks involved? You don't think you should have those options to terminate a pregnancy if you think it's a threat to your life? We grant special rights. We try to grant special rights and privileges to fetuses. A glob of chemicals is what I've heard that described as. Basically, that's pretty much what it is. I don't know why this is so complicating. People just don't understand. They don't follow the logic. And, I may not have a dog in this fight. Maybe I'm in over my head by sharing my thoughts and opinions on this. But it really just drives home the point that women have been put on the back burner for generations. And once again, with our Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade, although yes, it does grant the individual states to come up with their own policies and legislation surrounding abortions, but even still, that you're walking on eggshells, because those states can still say no. And then eventually, what if every state says no? Which I don't think would happen, because it would be up to the voters. Essentially, it would be up to the voters. But it's really it is a scary world we live in right now. And I can't think of anything worse than knowing that you don't have access to health care. Woman's choice. Her body, her choice. And I'm going to end this daily rant on that note. My name is Jared Fuller, a.k.a. the Jer Bear. Thanks for listening, and thanks for indulging my thoughts. And we can continue on with this conversation in email. The email address is in the About tab section of this channel. You can only see it on computers and not your cell phones or whatever. But we can continue to have these conversations, friendly conversations, no name calling or anything like that. We'll keep it civil. But I'm really outraged at what happened in this country. And there was so much more to say about that subject. And I didn't want to use up an entire Sunday video update to talk about something that is so controversial. I figured a daily rant would probably be the more appropriate platform to use, because it's just an outrage. This is so awful. It's a slap in the face to women all over the United States of America. This is an absolute smack to the fucking face. Even if the Supreme Court returns power to the states individually, those states can still strike it down. They can still say no. And that's sad. That's sad. A woman can't do what she wants with her body. I'm not saying use abortion as a form of birth control. I don't, that's probably where I'd have to draw the line, but even still, it's her decision. It's not for anybody else to say but that individual. And I'm just going to end it on that, because I have a feeling I will keep rambling on about this if I don't. So anyway, guys, much love to all of you. Thank you again for listening. My name is Jared Fuller, a.k.a. the Jer Bear. I will see you next time. And until such time, toodaloo!